Tara.
I'm Ryan.
We love Disney movies.
So we decided to watch them all, from Snow White
to Frozen 2 and beyond. Each episode will watch a different Walt Disney Animated Studios film and tell you all about it.
Did we like it? Does it hold up? Who's our favorite hero?
Or villain.
We'll give you history and fun facts about each movie.
And sometimes we'll invite our friends to watch along with us.
So put on your tiara
or your evil crown
and join us on our adventure.
This is Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries. Hello, listeners. We are back, and this will be our last full episode.
I know we said we were going to do Princess and the Frog, but
we lied.
We lied, and we're doing Enchanted instead. I did not see what year this came out, and that's probably
2007.
Yes, so it actually came out before Bolt.
So it fits before Princess and the Frog.
It's a little bit, yes, but we had some scheduling, but this is, I cannot tell you how excited I am to watch this today.
I'm very excited to watch it, and I think opening the second season with Princess and the Frog will be equally as good as closing out the season with it.
I think it's a good place to be. So one thing we want to talk about before we get started is we have a guest in studio.
We have a very special guest.
Very special guest who may or may not make her presence known. We'll see. I'm willing to bet she will.
She will, definitely.
We have Posey the Corgi. If you remember Molly from our
Lilo.
Thank you. Lilo and Stitch episode.
It's her
dog
pup.
is here today while they are in Disney World.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting. But Posey is a little more talkative than Lady Luck. So we may get a little bit more from her. I'll try and edit out as much as possible, but sometimes that might not be the case. So just in case you hear a little yippy dog, that is... She's not a yippy dog.
She's not yippy. Don't describe her like that.
Well,
her
she's got a
is,
higher bark than Lady,
yeah.
but Lady has also got a very deep bark.
So yeah, you might hear some additional dog barks in this episode. So to all our dog lovers out there,
it's been fun. Have you enjoyed having two dogs around?
I have very much enjoyed having two dogs. I don't know if Lady's enjoyed. Lady loves Posey. They're BFFs, but Lady likes her space.
Well, she likes...
And her downtime.
I will say Lady has been more affectionate to us.
Yes.
Because we're showing affection to more than just her. So
yes.
She has been like, don't forget me, guys. But let's get back into the movie. First of all, let's talk about the highest grossing films of this year, 2007.
Okay.
Number 3, Spider-Man 3. Number 2, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And number 1, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Oh, okay.
Other Disney ones we have this year is number 9 is National Treasure Book of Secrets. We will do National Treasure at some point.
Okay.
I guess the Simpsons movie is now a Disney property. Ratatouille. Also animated news, Shrek the Third is number 4. So, that's kind of what we're looking at this year.
Yeah, it got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, so very high score, 75 on Metacritic. The sequel, we should say, is slated for autumn of 2022 on Disney+.
Yes, and I
believe it's called Disenchanted.
Yes, I think it's dealing with
several months after they're married.
Well, I think they have a kid. Like, I think she's pushing a car. Like, I think it's... I'm curious how much about a divorce it is. Like, if they get divorced or if it's about just like a marriage that's kind of not as fairy tale as it once was. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of the stuff they talked about.
Yeah, I've seen in a magazine, I saw him on location shooting Patrick Dempsey, like in
McDreamy.
a like... Yes, McDreamy in a like Prince type outfit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that. I find this movie, and we'll talk about our connection in a sec, but I just find it so, enchanting is the first word that comes to mind, but so just endearing and delightful. And I think this is when Disney started kind of, like, this movie to me does a very good job of lampooning the Disney princess movies without making you feel dumb for liking the Disney princess movies.
Yes,
it's a celebration and a little bit of poking fun at it.
Yeah, the director said that there are thousands of Disney references, and in one of my notes I say there's so many Easter eggs, and I have a lot of them that I want to share in a little bit here. But he said it almost became an obsession. How many references could they put into this film? Ones that are somewhat like, oh, you'll notice them, and then ones that you may never notice that they're there.
Yeah, and I think some
also
of it
the names of characters represent names of real people.
Real people, fake people. Apparently, Idina Menzel's character's last name is Tremaine.
Yes, I have
that.
I
did not know. Yeah. I did not know. But
which is the stepmother, Lady Tremaine from Cinderella.
Which is funny because I don't think she ends up being like she's obviously the
she's Nancy Tremaine is her character's name.
She doesn't end up being a bad character. It's just I think the daughter is kind of like knows that Patrick Dempsey shouldn't be with her. Like
Yeah. Also, Nancy's character, they pointed out she doesn't sing. Even though
she had a song at one point.
It was a duet with Patrick Dempsey.
Yes,
yeah.
It was gonna be like over the credits or at a certain point, and they cut it before it got recorded.
Yeah, so. She is quoted as saying she was honored that they had asked her to adjust for her being an actress, not necessarily a singer, but she has won a Tony and has been nominated twice for Tony Awards for her voice, and then she becomes a Disney princess.
I was about to say, Disney like circles her.
Yes.
Is like, we got to do something with her.
I also wanted to say that it is, as you mentioned, it's a blend. It's a homage to Disney, but it's also a self-parody. So I think because it's both, it doesn't poke fun in the way like Shrek makes fun of things. It does it a little bit more gently and a little bit more like we're all in on the joke and it's all like it's for everyone's benefit.
So the way I thought of it rewatching the like making of stuff was you look at the scene of how does she know where they do the entire giant musical number
in Central Park, which I have some specific things about in a little bit.
Well, we'll go to that in a sec, but the thing is the whole time Patrick Dempsey is like, how do all these people know to sing? And he's making jokes that you would make in a Shrek movie. But I think in the Shrek movie, the character who's like, look how stupid this is, folks.
He's way more genuine.
It's not even he's genuine. It's they're taking the approach of, well, Patrick, if you would just join in on us singing, I think you'd have a whole lot more fun.
Yeah.
Like the movie wants you to also sing this song and also be in a musical number as opposed to pointing at the fact that musical numbers are silly.
Well, and I believe it had extras.
Listen, we'll get to that there because there's a lot of stuff. I'm almost wondering, I think we need to go through I think I'm going to say something to the audience. If you haven't watched this movie, I think you should watch it before we talk about before we say, and you should stop right now and watch it.
And not necessarily because there's spoilers, but just to kind of go in as a blank slate.
Yes. If you've seen it before, I think we should go through all the like things to watch this time.
Yeah, I agree.
The audience are not going to see this, but Tara, that's all just references.
Oh yeah, I have several pages too.
It's ridiculous.
The first thing I do want to mention is that it was nominated for 3 Oscars. They were all for original songs, so it was 3 nominations in one category.
And they didn't win though.
No,
did
they was nominated for "That's How You Know," "So Close," and "Happy Working Song."
Happy Working Song. I'm jumping the gun here, but it is my favorite.
Over "That's How You Know"?
Yes.
Wow.
Happy Working Song is touches the comedic tone of this movie. I think That's How She Knows is pretty spot on perfect with the genuineness, is that a word? Of this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Happy Working Song I think it's hilarious. Like I will laugh out loud during it, even though there's not a lot of like full on, there are jokes in it, but just the whole idea of like, oh, well, I guess we have to do this song, even though we only have roaches, rats, and pigeons.
Yeah.
She's like, okay. It's just the concept of the song is so funny.
Yeah. So it lost to the movie Once, and the song was Falling Slowly, which is like one of my I love that song.
It's a good song.
But that's what it was nominated. That's what it was up against.
It was also the movie. Once?
Yes, yeah. Okay. I saw the movie before I saw it on Broadway. Well, we didn't see it on Broadway, but we saw it on the stage, Kennedy Center.
Yeah, the Kennedy Center. Yeah.
But yeah, I was familiar with the movie.
The most overpriced Guinness. The big thing about that play is there's a bar and you can go in and drink at the bar
beforehand, and I think at intermission
and it
too.
And it was like, would you like $11 for like the you're
smallest
talking,
pour?
You're talking theater prices and then East Coast prices, and I was just like, I mean, I gotta have a Guinness, but it was ridiculous.
So I have things to look out for. I have fun facts about the show. I did want to mention a few things about the director as well as those who wrote the music. It was Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz.
Yes.
So they have written lots of Disney music.
Schwartz worked on Hunchback and Pocahontas, and he actually worked on Prince of Egypt as well.
Oh.
So he did the lyrics for Prince of Egypt, which I'm starting to find out. For some reason, I thought that was kind of a movie that not a lot of people
watch your tone.
Hear me out. I thought it was genuinely regarded as not a good movie, and I don't know what I'm thinking of because the tweener bracket, the tweener movie bracket, has shown me that it is beloved. And
it is.
I
saw it in the theater.
Yeah, listening to some of the music, I think in general the soundtrack is considered to be very good.
Oh, the soundtrack's solid, and I knew every word to it at one point in my life.
So again, we're gonna try and watch all those movies, but I think Prince of Egypt has moved up in my estimation.
Okay. So I also wanted to talk about the director, and now I'm looking. Director Kevin Lima, is that
Kevin Lima, who had done the Goofy movie and Tarzan.
Yes, I also have him as some other movies as well. 102 Dalmatians, yes, and The Wonderful World of Disney.
Right. So he's done a few other things. I don't think he's done much director-wise since this movie.
He describes her character's name. It's Giselle, right?
Giselle, yes.
He describes Giselle as 80% Snow White with traits borrowed from Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty with the spunkiness of Ariel.
Yeah,
which I think is a great blending of the Disney princesses, and I think you can see that quite a bit in this film. The other thing I wanted to mention, hold on. I have several pages of notes, if you can hear that, is this film marks the return to traditional animation to a Disney feature film after the company's decision to go full computer animation in 2004. So I just kind of wanted to make a note about that.
Well,
and
I have an additional note because this shocked me. It's not Disney animation.
Yes, it's
James Baxter's company.
Yes, I've got it. And they did Curious George.
Well, James Baxter himself also did the
studio.
That animator did the animation for Belle, Rafiki, and Quasimodo. So he's a Disney.
So he's a Disney person, and then went and did his own studio.
Yeah,
got it.
He also worked on Prince of Egypt at some point, I believe I saw on there. So
okay.
So
it
that was
sounds
interesting
like
to me.
We should be doing Prince of Egypt soon.
Okay, all right. It was just funny because they had fired let go a lot of their animation, and those who weren't working on Princess and the Frog, like they didn't have anybody extra, so that's when they hired that other company, which was kind of a shock to me. I didn't realize it was Disney animators, but ex-Disney animators.
So one of the facts I read was that there were over 300 actresses that auditioned for Giselle, and Amy Adams was 275.
Oh, really?
That was her number. Yeah, there was a list of other people who were considered for her role. I didn't write it down.
I got a few: Kate Hudson, Reese Witherspoon.
Okay.
Were two big ones they were pushing, but didn't go. Do you know the whole thing with why her animated counterpart doesn't look like Amy Adams?
Well, I read that they wanted to make her as part of one of the Disney princesses lineup, and they realized they'd have to pay for her lifelong rights to Amy Adams' likeness. So that's why Amy Adams' version wasn't included as a Disney princess.
Well, it was also because then they thought, well, we'll just do the animated version, and they were kind of like, well, I don't think anyone will know who this is.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I remember that was a fact I heard a long time ago. But it was the thing they talked about was Carrie Fisher apparently had like some deal, and that was a lot of money she got. And that
interesting.
Was what they did.
Yeah.
Did you read about how this was originally like supposed to happen in like 1997 and all this stuff about the original one?
I saw that it had been not necessarily in production, but had been talked about and thought of since the 90s. But I didn't really go down that rabbit hole as to what it meant. I think I read something about it being rated more R-rated at one point.
Yes, it was, and not actually R-rated, but there was a lot more raunchy comedy in it because it was in the late 90s. That was like American Pie and something like Mary and all those. And so there was apparently a scene where Giselle was mistaken for a stripper at a bachelor party and things like that. So like, I don't know. I don't know if they were willing to talk about like even like if that was about how raunchy it was, or if that was just the only one they were willing to share. About. Yeah.
I also read that it was the first full-length Disney live-action traditional animation movie since Roger Rabbit in 1988.
Even though they don't really they don't really match up. There's a lot more of them dealing. It was interesting watching it because it's not like the live-action characters are interacting with the animated characters much, other than like. I think I forgot the character's name, but Timothy Spall's character looking in at Narcissa, the
Nathaniel?
the queen. Nathaniel, yes, Nathaniel's glad I'm here. He always wants me near. But when he talks to her, she's animated, like in the like he talks to her in something weird like a puddle or something.
Yes, yeah.
But there is a lot of stuff from Roger Rabbit in like Happy Working Song where she had a dress that had a rig that like there's a lot of actual elements of physical elements. There's a scene where she's scrubbing with all the rats.
Yeah.
The rats are CGI, but the scrub brushes and everything are moving on their own. Her dress is being like actually moved.
Oh, interesting.
And then they add in that stuff. Now it's CG, but there's a lot of similar stuff that they did from Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. Speaking of her dress, her wedding dress that she wears weighed 45 pounds.
Yes, and just for reference, this is a personal thing I found. The proton packs from Ghostbusters weighed about 60. So this is just not much.
They said, from what I read, her stunt double taught her how to move in the dress so she could be comfortable in it. Well, as comfortable as she could. And apparently the entire weight was on her hips. So she said a lot of times it felt like she was in traction. So it was like not comfortable to wear.
Because it's big metal hoops that keep them kind of fluffy like that.
Also, we were talking earlier about how say Idina Menzel's name.
I think you almost got it. Adina Menzel.
Okay.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right. We're just going with this pronunciation.
Menzel's, I'm going to just say.
Adim, do you remember
That's why I feel like I always second guess how to say her name because of John Travolta's mishap with saying her name wrong. But we were talking about how she doesn't sing. And even though that's the case, there were several non-singers that made their debut in this film, including Patrick Dempsey. He had never sung in anything before.
Does he sing in the film?
Yes, I believe he sings in How
Did she know? How does she know?
I think it's How Do You Know?
How do you know?
Yeah, I think so.
You guys know what we're talking about. We're professionals.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. I also have some information about what was the most challenging shoot. So out of all of what do you think was the most challenging shoot? If you had to guess?
Central Park because it rained. There was so many people. Like there's all sorts of stuff.
Yes, you have all of my.
I know
all of my facts.
I did want to go back real quick to the singing thing. Amy Adams, did you know she took singing lessons to do this? She was one of the people.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
She did it specifically. She goes, "Well, this is me. I wanted this to be all of my role. I want to sing. I want to do this."
Yeah,
so
that's great. Good for her.
Lessons and everything.
Because I'm not done with the Central Park.
Excuse me.
It was a 5-minute scene. It took 17 days to shoot. And
yes.
As you said, it was because of a lot of changing weather. It only allowed for 7 sunny days. So out of those 17 days, only 7 of them were sunny when they filmed. Also, filming was hampered, is what I read, due to McDreamy fans.
Yeah, I read this too. They kept screaming, McDreamy!
Yeah.
Like while the camera was shooting. And they'd go, you have to go over there and tell them to be quiet. And he'd go and be like, hey guys, you know.
Thank you for because I feel like it was at the height of him being McDreamy when this came out. Okay, I'm looking over my notes to see. A lot of other things I have are like things to look out for. So I don't know if you have any other specific facts.
All right. So I would say now, if this is your first time watching it, maybe go ahead and watch it. If you want to hear, unless you want to hear all these, because I have a ton too. Let's just start hitting the references.
Okay.
Ready?
We'll just go back and
go.
Oh, and we'll go back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. You do one, I'll do one.
Yeah. And then we'll see if we have ones that repeat or whatever.
Okay.
So when Edward is on top of the bus, there's people riding by on tour buses next to him and they're pointing and laughing. Do you have this?
No. So now I'm excited to hear this one.
They're pointing and laughing. They're real tourists. They're not extras.
Really?
So they
That's
were
funny.
just real tourists in the city. Yeah.
I'll put my other one on the thing. When the woman comes out, they're saying that her haircut kind of looks like a hidden Mickey.
Oh, yeah. Is it the bus driver?
Yeah, the bus driver kind of has two like buns. So
I read that, and I read the other hidden Mickey is apparently when they go to, this is a double Easter egg. They go to a restaurant, Edward and Giselle, and it's called Bella Notte, after the song from Lady and the Tramp. Apparently, the green peppers.
It's an Italian restaurant, too. Don't they get...
They get pizza.
Oh, and yeah, the green peppers.
The green peppers are Mickey, like shaped like Mickey. So that was the other hidden Mickey that I had.
All right. So there's a lot of characters. We'll go into this. There's some Disney princesses who make a live action debuts in this.
I have all the debuts.
I do too, but I want to talk about the newscaster who I didn't get her name, but her name is it's 3 names that are a combination of the actresses who did Aurora, Cinderella, and Snow White.
Her name, I believe, is Mary Eileen Castellotti, if I'm saying that right. And those are the three names. Mary Costa is the voice of Sleeping Beauty. Eileen Woods is the voice of Cinderella. And Adriana Castellotti is the voice of Snow White. Okay. So again, I might not have said each name. I might not have pronounced it right, but that's where that comes from.
So I believe we're now on to you have a reference.
So do you want me to share where the princesses are, or did you want to take that one?
I want to take that one.
Okay, so I'll do a different one.
You do that one.
I'll do a different one. Well, it's okay. I have a lot.
Go.
So in the law firm where Robert Phillip, Patrick Dempsey works, it's called Churchill, Harline, and Smith, and they are the surnames of the songwriters from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Did you also know that the people he's dealing with, specifically who are thinking about getting divorced, are Mr. and Mrs. Banks?
No, that's a good one. No. Another Mary Poppins connection. Apparently one of the elderly male dancers appeared in Mary Poppins as a chimney sweep.
Yes. There's a really cool thing. This is not really a reference.
And Julie Andrews is the narrator.
I guess you're doing two in a row.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was just another Mary Poppins connection.
Well, apparently there was a lot of I watched the whole thing on the Central Park thing, and there was a lot of like hip hop dancers, and they got all different types of dancers to do it, and they were talking about how grateful they were to be working with these older like luminary dancers who had done stuff like that, and kind of got this opportunity for everyone to mix and match and do that sort of thing.
That's really cool.
Also, speaking of the law firm, let's go into the princesses in live action debuts. Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel, is has a pretty meaty role in this.
She's a secretary.
Yeah, I think she's in more than one scene.
And Giselle is looking at the fish tank, and as she's doing that,
you can hear part of your world.
Yes.
Also, there's a part where they're watching TV. I'm going to cover a couple in this because that TV has a couple different things.
I have the TV have a couple different things too.
Paige O'Hara is the character is playing the woman on the soap opera. Paige O'Hara, the voice of Belle.
Yes.
She is playing a character named Angela after Angela Lansbury, and she's talking to a character named Jerry after Jerry Orbach.
That's great. That I didn't know. I didn't have that second part. That's really great.
Did you? And apparently the background kind of sounds a little bit like Beauty and the Beast when you listen to it. Did you have the other two Disney shows and movies that are on TV?
No, but I have a third princess that makes an appearance. So do you want to say her first?
Well, before we do that, you can do that one, but let me go to the
other TV shows.
When it cuts back to Nathaniel and I forgot the prince's name. I know that James Marsden, but there's
Edward.
Yes, Edward. You can hear a little bit of Pink Elephants on Parade, the little dance part. Oh,
yes. And then there's something with Dumbo I read, but I don't know.
I don't know the Dumbo.
That's Pink Elephants. Sorry.
Fun and Fancy Free when they cut back. You remember the one with Jiminy Cricket goes over to Edgar Bergen's house, and they're the guy who's the ventriloquist.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll show some of that when they're...
Oh, that's really fun. The third princess is the singing voice of Pocahontas, and her name is Judy...
I didn't get her name.
Kuhn.
Kuhn. I think it was Kuhn. Or
Kuhn.
One of those.
She... Edward goes around knocking on apartment doors in search for Giselle. The first door that opens is her.
Well, the one who's got she's like, I'm looking for my princess, and she's like, you're a little late, and there's a bunch. She's got like 5 kids.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I see. You know this movie way more than I do.
I got a couple. I got another one.
Oh, I've got some more too. Listeners, can you tell we're being a little competitive with these facts?
I would just say the facts, but Tara has to be the one to say it.
Are you kidding? Well, it sounds like you want to say them all. That's not fair.
I'm actually almost done. I've got some ones about the animated sequences. Is that okay if I jump in with that?
Yeah, I don't think I have those.
Because there's one thing that's kind of a fact, but also a reference. So she makes a fake version of her prince. Remember, like with a bucket head.
Yeah.
There's a scene where she holds up the jewels to her eyes, like Dopey. But then when she puts it on, it's that whole making a fake prince is like kind of Sleeping Beauty, kind of Ariel finding the statue of Eric, etc. But if you look at that thing, it doesn't look like Edward. It looks like McDreamy.
Oh, that's really cool.
And it's wearing the thing he wears, which is kind of like the Beast's outfit almost in the ballroom.
Oh, that's really neat.
Like
that's a really cool connection.
Because he's got these big, beautiful blue eyes, and that's
McDreamy.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know you were.
I loved Patrick Dempsey.
They both. I will say one thing. I would take either of their hair. that like wavy kind of just a little long. Ooh, that's the kind of hair I wish I had.
Salt and pepper. His hair is salt and pepper now. Yeah. Well, now that we're done with our McDreamy rant,
not just McDreamy. I want to say Edward's really handsome.
Yes,
too.
Edward is very handsome
played
too.
by James Marsden.
Actually, there's a lot of really like good-looking people in this movie.
Now, James Marsden, I took a girl I was dating at a time to go see 27 Dresses, and she said he looks like your very handsome cousin, which.
Thank you? Question
yeah,
mark.
I dated some girls who were mean to me, but I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like if you think I look anything like him, that's fine.
Yeah. Robert and Giselle take an elevator. So this is McDreamy and Amy Adams take an elevator to his apartment. And there's a brief moment apparently where the camera zooms in on the elevator floor display. And it apparently has a startling resemblance to Tower of Terror. And it has 1 through 12 floors. Like it stops at 12.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to look out for that. Do you have more?
Ballroom scene looks like Beauty and the Beast. He's wearing kind of a beast outfit. I think that's about all I got.
Okay, I've got 1 or 2 more.
All right. I guess you had more than me.
This is what I do. At the end of the movie, Nathaniel is signing copies of his book in a bookstore. And I don't know how quick this is. So I want to try to look out for it if we remember it. So it might happen quickly. But apparently there's a poster in the bookshop or the bookstore that advertises a cookbook, Meriwether's Guide to Baking.
That's funny.
Isn't that great? And
yeah,
it's because Beauty, Meriwether and Flora had that fight about how to do the cake.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing, we always look out for the goofy hollers. There's a goofy holler in Gear, and it's when the troll is tossed through the air by the tree. I think it's also the tree she falls into.
Yes.
So that and then I have just one other connection to a princess. And again, there are apparently thousands of references. So listeners, I'm putting a call out to you before I share this last one. If there's anything that we didn't share, or even when we come back that we don't catch, we would love to hear from you on the Facebook group, in an email, like if you catch a reference that we haven't mentioned, because I am sure there are so many in this film that we might catch now because we've done this podcast, but also I'm sure there are ones we're going to miss. But the last one I have is Giselle is barefoot when she meets Prince Edward, and that's a tribute to Sleeping Beauty. And I feel like I remember us talking specifically about Sleeping Beauty being barefoot on that episode of the podcast.
I have another barefoot fact that's why I choked.
And that was my last one.
Well, Patrick Dempsey, apparently Amy Adams didn't want to wear shoes while they were filming the dance scene because she was more comfortable, and he accidentally tore off her toenail.
I did read that, but I didn't understand. They didn't put it in context like that, so I was confused what it meant, so I didn't write it down.
Snuck into her thing.
No, I assumed it happened on set, but like it didn't really give details, so I didn't want to like say it because I didn't know how it happened. But yes, I did read that. It was during the dance
scene.
Oh goodness, that's awful.
Well, yeah, I feel like yeah. So that's why when you said something about barefoot, I started choking because I was like, oh, I forgot about this fact.
Yeah.
I might have a few more in here.
Do we want to talk about our personal connection to this film, or do we want to do that when we come back?
Let's do that when we come back. We spent enough time doing this. It's time for us to take the VHS out of the clamshell and stick it in the VCR.
See you on the other side, listeners.
Hello, fairy tale friends. We're back. Hello, Posey. I see you. Great.
Always great.
Wonderful.
This is one, we didn't talk about it in the first half, but this is one that we love as a couple. Ryan has loved on his own.
Did I watch it before we got together?
Yes. I don't
remember the first time I saw it.
I had never seen it, and you were like, we need to watch this movie.
It's really, I love it. Like, there are movies I have that I would never call like in my, top whatever, but they're like infinitely rewatchable for me. And this is one of them.
It's so good.
Like there's some parts near the end where I'm kind of like, okay. But there's some parts of this movie that I love.
I think the ending could have been trimmed a little bit, and we'll get there.
Yeah. It's a little long.
Do we want to just talk about our connection as it comes up in the movie?
Well, I mean, we can just say what happened was we watched it on a Valentine's Day.
And we
drank an entire bottle of wine.
We drank probably even more than that. We were feeling good, listeners. And I have lots of instruments for my job, like handheld percussion instruments. And we may have gotten out all of my instruments and played along to How Do You Know?
Yes.
And it was wonderful. And it's one of my top 10 memories, I think, of us.
I will say there was a moment before we started recording where I'm like, do we want to have a couple drinks before we do this one? Like, and kind of recreate it. But I don't know. That could go...
could go sideways fast. But no, it was just like this really like fun moment. We were just like hilariously laughing. And then it was late and we were like, I'm wondering what our neighbors thought. Nobody ever like came to us or knocked on our door or anything.
Yeah, we were in an apartment at that point.
But we were definitely in an apartment above people and with people on either side of us. And then there's one clip in here, which we'll talk about when we get to it, that no matter when I watch it, I laugh. And it happened again. She
laughed. So I'm like, you know what's happening. There's nothing.
So good. I love it.
It's so funny.
I love it so much.
We'll get there. One thing we want to do kind of going forward with the podcast is we're really trying to, we want to keep doing these, but we're no longer stuck in the house all the time for quarantine. So we have like lives we're trying to do. So we're going to try and attempt. Tara's having a really hard time with this.
I am.
Just thinking about this, but we're going to attempt to keep the second part of the podcast a little shorter. So we're going to try and go through it.
Not going beat for beat, which is hard for me, as you know, listeners, because I tried to take less notes and I still have several pages of notes. But
well, I will say, and we'll start from the beginning, that it starts out with the Disney castle and then does a quick zoom in.
Well, I even have a note before that.
Good God in heaven. What could it possibly be?
Well, that it was rated PG. We didn't talk about that. And I thought it was interesting because it was rated PG for scary images and mild innuendos was the language.
Have we talked about on the podcast about my, as a young child, fear of ugly women? Like,
I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but I think you need to give some more details.
It's the librarian from Ghostbusters when she changes. The woman who's like, boo, from Princess Bride really bothered me. Like, anytime it's like a hag, like
an older woman.
Well, when they make not just an older woman, like they make them look like a hag.
Mm-hmm.
So in this movie, we have a hag that when I watched it, I was like, oh, I would not have been able to watch this when I was a kid. It would have made me terrified.
The real life version.
The innuendo is so light.
I was wondering if you picked up on anything that I didn't.
There's the part where the girl goes, boys only want that one thing. And Giselle's like, what? And she goes, I don't know. No one will tell me.
Yeah, which I think was a good joke.
Yeah, but I think it's still innuendo.
I guess, yeah.
And there's a couple things where like...
With Nathaniel and the evil queen, I guess.
There's some of... I meant more like when the guy comes out. There's a couple like gay references that... I not being a gay person myself, I didn't find them homophobic, but they were a little like, I think they handled them well because it's like, I'm looking for a prince, and no one seemed like, that's bizarre. They were like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, well, and then when he knocks on apartment doors, he knocks on like a biker guy's door who seems very happy.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that maybe the imagery of a biker guy is like someone sitting around in leather is a gay man, like, might be weird. I don't know. There's some of that stuff in there, but like we're also trying to get to the point where we don't think of just the fact that there are gay people as sexual innuendo, just like the fact that there are straight people wouldn't be considered sexual innuendo, right?
The other thing that we noticed is Nathaniel is in a lot of racially insensitive cultural...
Well, the first one is just like, I have no idea what
that accent is, but he's a food vendor in Central Park. And then the second one, he's an Italian waiter in an Italian restaurant. And then
I feel like is a little okay.
They increasingly get worse.
The third
one, he's a taxi cab driver.
And he's wearing a long beard and a turban, which he didn't need to be. He wasn't hiding from anyone.
No.
It was just a joke for look at him wear a turban. He's a taxi driver. Isn't that funny? It was like, okay.
Yeah. So that's just something else to look out for. But
the movie in general is pretty heteronormative, is something I brought up where it was all like, oh, you need to find a man for you and
your prince.
Women.
Yeah.
And, that sort of thing. So, let's see. Let's hope that's something they address in the next one. I don't, we'll see. It's. I feel like movies that are in production now and beyond may do some of that stuff, but I think that movie is coming out pretty soon. But
Yeah, and I don't know when the script for that was written because with COVID, it may have been something that was supposed to go into production, but they could always do rewrites, I
will
guess.
say they've been working on that movie for a while.
Yeah.
Like this, I feel like this didn't do great, but like it's had like a really good home video.
Yeah, and I think once it was debuted on like Disney Plus Day, it was like one of the things they added. I think it was a big deal.
So now
going
after
back
we
to
said
the
that we were
castle.
going to go through faster, let's start on the movie. They go through the castle and it comes to, of course, the traditional like pedestal with a book on it.
But the book is a pop-up book, so that's how they change it a little
Very
bit, which
cool
I like.
Imagery. Mm-hmm. And it's talking about there's the evil stepmother who wants to keep the crown and her son. So she's kept her stepson from finding someone. And then we cut to Giselle, who has no job, has no parents, but apparently just does everything with animals.
The animals. And it's a very Sleeping Beauty Cinderella vibe. She's in like a Sleeping Beauty style cottage and she's dreaming. She had a dream of her prince and, she's making him out of things that the animals are bringing to her.
Now, I will contest, although we did find out that James Marsden does have blue eyes.
Does the actor have blue eyes?
I don't know.
The animated character had blue eyes as Edward.
I definitely think because it had like it looked like a blue. It looked like what.
I still agree that it looks more like Patrick Dempsey's character, but Edward as an animated person had blue eyes.
Did I ever tell you I went to grad school with a guy who was like he went by Trick. Mm-hmm. And then like he's like, yeah, I go by Trick, and we're like, okay, sure, because it's whatever.
Yeah.
And then we learned his last name was Dempsey, and then one day someone's like, wait, is Trick short for Patrick? And he goes, yes.
Oh, that's really funny.
It was just he was trying to avoid.
Yeah, trying to avoid
Dempsey.
that. That's hilarious. But we meet her, and she's got the very very stereotypical Disney princess vibe going on, and then we meet Edward and Nathaniel, who are hunting trolls. Yes. So I kind of like how we meet them and the way we meet them.
Nathaniel is trying to keep him hunting trolls so he never meets a girl. But then he hears Giselle. He goes off after
Hears her voice. That's all very Sleeping Beauty.
Nathaniel releases the troll. The troll goes to go get Giselle. I don't think he saves her. He catches her when she falls, but like she gets away from that troll herself.
Yeah.
It's all her and Pip, which Pip is a chipmunk who has like a
New York accent.
Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, has a New York accent.
He's in New York.
He's a real chipmunk voice. Yes. And you said that's the director.
Yes, he did it like when they were shooting the scenes to put stuff in, and then when they were animating him, they're like, "Well, just get in here and get behind a microphone and do it."
So they make the joke about they've just met, and he's like, "And we'll be married tomorrow." And then tomorrow comes, and she's going to her wedding, and as she's going, an old woman, very Snow White, comes up to her and wants to give her a wedding gift.
Shoves her down a wishing well.
Yeah, wants to give her a wedding gift of having her make a wish and then pushes her down.
Right, but it's not like the clever, like, eat this apple or something. She just, like, I was kind of like, why did you have to be dressed as a hag to do that? Why couldn't you just have shoved her in the witching well?
I guess, she didn't want her to know it was
the evil queen. I just thought it was funny, like, anyway. Did you think that troll looked kind of Shrek-like?
I didn't. Okay, no, but maybe. But she sends her to a place where there are no happily ever afters, and it's New York City.
And this is where we get the real iconic poster look of her coming through what at first looks like a secret door, but then it's just a manhole.
You mean the movie poster?
The movie poster for this is her like
she's in the middle of Times Square
in this huge dress coming out of a Times Square manhole.
And every time somebody comes out of that manhole, there's tons of glitter, which I loved. It's just a nice touch. But she pops out of the manhole, and I just thought about, like, if I was in Times Square and all of a sudden somebody came out of this manhole in a crazy dress, you would think it's like performance art or street artist or something like that. But then
she does such a good job. Like, this movie doesn't exist without Amy Adams in this role.
I agree. She does a fantastic job. She's so genuine. She's so sweet, but she plays it so well of just because I think Elf, it's got a similar vibe. Also, it's set in New York, but it's a very similar thing where he comes from this magical fantasy land and then is in this real world and doesn't know how to exist in the real world.
Right.
She does her own take on it, and it works really well because she's got the framework of being a Disney princess, But I think there's a similar thing there.
Well, I think this and Elf, which again, good point. I'm glad you thought of that. That's something I thought of, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
I think this movie's a little less goofy and a little more. I think Elf works because it's also earnest, but this movie is even
more.
It's a little sincere.
Mm-hmm. I agree with
but
that.
I like that both of them do have this kind of reverence for the city of New York, while not exactly shying away from like what it is.
Yeah, and
it's a fantasy version, and I think it seems more realistic compared to what Giselle's fantasy is.
Yeah.
But I do like that, like, later we see the pigeons and stuff, and they're like, I love when he goes, "Welcome to New York." She's like, "Thank you."
Yeah, she's like so genuine. But we then meet Robert trying to settle a divorce, and we find out that he, does not believe in romance, no fairy tales for his daughter. Mm-hmm. He's very much real world. And his secretary, who's
Jodie Benson. Again,
Ariel,
in like 2 or 3 scenes.
Yeah, she kind of points out, like, oh, wow, she's... that Nancy's a real lucky cat. Like she kind of points out that he's just like, he's very by the book, matter of fact. Well, we've been dating this long. It's time that I propose, that kind of a thing. And so we were joking that he needs to go pick up his daughter, and he just leaves his client in the room, in the conference room.
He's a divorce lawyer. He's a divorce lawyer. So his client and her husband are
soon to be ex-husband with his lawyer are in the conference room
arguing, and it's like a real they're arguing over a Hank Aaron baseball card. And he goes, "I have to go pick up my daughter. I gotta go." And I'm like, that's a real good lawyer move, is to leave your divorce client in the room under like heated conditions.
It also looks like it's not the first time that they've tried to come in here and settle it. They're like, okay, so we're just going to have to pick this up tomorrow. It was clear they weren't coming to a decision.
I think that actor's name is Isaiah Whitlock. I could be wrong, but he's from the Wire, the one that says the really long curse word I can't put on here because we don't have that long a quack. I don't want to make the quack go quack.
But he then, tells his daughter, he buys her this book. Again, he's staying away from fairy tales. He buys her like real women.
It's like important
like notable
women in
history. Yeah. And about how she's going to be a nice stepmother. She won't replace her mother. He's kind of going into that. And then we see Giselle on a billboard. She's found a palace billboard, and she's knocking on it. And Morgan just jumps out of the car to like try to help her.
In her karate gi. There's no mention of it, but he's apparently picking her up from karate lessons.
Yeah, which I love. Or taekwondo or something like
that.
Some
martial art. Yeah.
And so this is where I wrote the dialogue is so good. You mentioned it earlier when he's like, "Welcome to New York." And she's like, "Oh, thank you." But there's so many good moments throughout this where she's so earnest. He's a New Yorker. He's kind of a grump. Like, he's not mean.
I mean, he's a realist.
Yeah, he's not mean by any. I want to say by any means, but that's
he is. But like, he's not like a real New York. I mean, like we've talked about how like one of the things I like about East Coast is like, they can seem mean, but it's more like they're just not going to put up with any of your junk.
Yeah,
they're like, they're very matter of fact. Like, when I go to New York, this was in Philadelphia a lot, and I would
say Philadelphia and New Jersey more than New York, because you've only been there once.
People may be mean, but like they're just telling you exactly what it is, and they're just not putting up with it.
They're just very blunt.
In Texas, people, I feel like,
bless your heart,
will say something, and the second you walk away, they're making fun of you.
Yeah.
Then they'll have a real opinion of you. So it's just they just put everything out there. And I think that's what this does. I also think he's a romantic who is like. We find out he's covering everything up through realism. He's like, well, I need to be realist. I need to accept that this stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah. So,
but I will also say real quick that like she's funny on her own in this character, but she really takes off when he gets to play her straight man.
Yes, I would agree with that. They do very well as a duo for sure. Morgan realizes she might be a real princess. He, of course, thinks she's just a seriously confused woman, and this is where it has this Mary Poppins feel when he gets her back to the house. He doesn't want to take her in, and then he's like, okay, I'll call you a cab. Let me help you. And it does have that feel of like the child believes in the magic.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of hands off the story to her dad. She comes up again later. There's a lot of stuff with the mom that I'm kind of interested to see where they pick up.
The mom. I'm not talking about the mom at all.
I'm saying like as the girl's storyline. Like she kind of disappears from the story and then she comes back to kind of be like, I really like you, Giselle. Like, this is what it's like to go shopping with your mom and stuff like that. But she kind of disappears and comes back. That's her storyline, is dealing with that. But those were the stuff. I wish you brought up a point where I haven't seen anything about, is that girl coming back? Like, this came out in like 2007.
Yeah, so she would be, I guess she'd be
15 years old, or she'd be an adult.
Yeah. So I would love if they have her in it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's like she's at boarding school or she's somewhere, right? Where like, but I hope they at least reference her. But I'd love to.
Boarding school. I think she'd be a full-fledged, like,
adult?
I've been out of college for 3 years.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
I think she'd be like 25 at this point. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do that. But then I wrote, Edward and Pip's arrival is hilarious when they come out of the manhole. Well, just because he
dives in head first.
Yes, and then he pops up and he's like props himself on the metal that's around the
right. Yeah. Everybody else has a problem getting out of that manhole except for him, and Narissa comes out.
She comes out pretty good. But when she wakes up and sees the mess, and their apartment is very messy, but he's a single dad who's a lawyer and has a child.
Okay. Okay, you have more of a better like place to make that statement. Okay, I thought it was really bad.
It was pretty bad, but I also think when you're a single parent, I think you're focused on like making sure, okay, my kid's fed, my kid's dressed, my kid's off to school, and now I have to go to work. So I think cleaning is like lower on your list of like things to do.
I just think a divorce lawyer in New York could have paid for someone to come through.
Yeah, he probably should have had a maid, but
I feel like that's what Nancy says when she shows up. Do you guys finally get a maid?
Yeah. So she calls all the animals, and this is where the mice, the pigeons, the flies, and the roaches show up.
So
for the happy working
and
song.
One of the pigeons only has one leg.
Well, because was it the one that got hit the window?
Yes, and then the one that does something later that we'll say.
Yeah.
But a lot of this, I don't know if I brought this up, a lot of this is actually pigeons and rats.
Yeah, I don't know that we talked about it beforehand, but we were talking about it while we were watching
Apparently, baby pigeons are very easy. Like, what they want to do most of the time is go to their trainer. So, like, all they got to do is put them in a box, and then let them go, and they'll go right to their trainer. So there are a lot of those scenes where you might think they're doing a lot of like, fake rats or stuff. Like when she opens the door and they come through, those are pigeons and rats. Those are real pigeons.
Yeah,
and rats.
It's crazy. It's really kind of impressive to think about.
Tara had some thoughts as to why Giselle knew what a vacuum was, because those were in the lyrics of the song. She says crud in the kitchen. Let's have a little like...
I was just saying, how would she know what a vacuum is?
She wouldn't, because later there's a lot of stuff she doesn't know.
Yeah, but it's still a great song.
And the best part is at the end when they finish the song and then it cuts to like a roach standing next to a pigeon.
And cheering, and the roach is like cheering, like excited.
And the pigeon looks at the roach and just eats it.
It's
my I lose it every time.
But this is the Mary Poppins magic that I was referring to, where Morgan sees it. It's so like she's so amazed. And then by the time Robert wakes up, it's just all these vermin in his house. And they're like, we just need to get these animals out of here.
So then Giselle discovers the shower.
Yes, I guess that's before. Yes.
She discovers the shower, and he kind of walks in on an accident. But these two pigeons like
are giving her the towel like Cinderella, and she's
like, "Where does the water come from?" She's so enthused,
and it's such a magical place. And that's when Nancy comes in, and of course there's a riff because she's like, "Why is there a woman in his apartment who's like?" basically naked, and then also it's clear she spent the night, and Nancy's like, you've never let me spend the night because you wanted a routine for Morgan, and now you have this strange woman in your house.
And it was one of the few times when this kind of scene has happened where I was like, I'm totally, not necessarily on Nancy's side, but I completely understand.
She didn't overreact, and I don't think I think it's how it may have gone in real life if something like that happened.
They also do a really good job of having her not be overly... Like, she's just not connecting with Morgan, obviously, but it's not like... She's not like... She goes, hey, girlfriend. She's like, girlfriend.
She's trying to force it, I think. Yeah. She's trying to force the relationship because she's like, let's kick it. And she's like, kick what? Like,
but I don't think it's like... They're not putting up any qualities as bad.
No.
They're just saying like, Nancy just does not connect with Morgan.
But maybe that's because she hasn't really been allowed to spend a lot of time with her, right? Yeah. So I love when he runs out to try to get Nancy. He doesn't get to her before she gets in a cab, and he comes back up and she's fully dressed. And he's like, where did you find that dress? She goes, I made it. And it's such a good beat because she says she made it. And behind her is the dress pattern cut out of the hanging curtains, which is just, I love that bit so much.
Which becomes like a running thing in the show is anytime she gets a new dress, it's like they cut to like the carpet and it's
it was curtains from his daughter's room that were laying on the ground.
Oh, they were laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I wrote only one or two quotes down, but this is one I loved that Robert says, it's like you escaped from a Hallmark card or something. Like there are a couple ones we really chuckled at. So the evil queen manipulates Nathaniel to go get Prince Edward. And while Nathaniel's in the real world, she appears to talk to him. She appears in the fish tank at Robert's office. Mm-hmm. She appears in a pot of soup. In a restaurant. She appears in a water cooler jug later, and then a martini. Yeah. So I
guess there's drinking in this. We didn't really think about that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that at the end.
So Prince Edward is going around. Nathaniel finds him. He's going around trying to find her. And this is another quote I love. He's on the top of the bus. We didn't see the tourists that they talked about, but he's on the top of the bus and he sticks his sword into the top of the bus and he goes, the steel beast is dead, peasants. I set you all free. He has so many good lines, but that one really tickled me. I also
like the bus woman being like, hold on, everybody. And she gets out. She's like, are you
like,
insane?
Get nobody puts a sword through my bus or whatever. Yeah. So the next note I have is they're at a deli and it's Edward and Nathaniel with Pip. And Pip overhears
Nathaniel getting poison apples from the soup from from Nerissa.
Yeah, he overhears that's the plan, how they're going to poison her so they don't get married.
And we have now reached the scene
that I laugh at, that we will put up on the Facebook page.
And it's, why don't you perform it for us, Tara?
I don't think I can do it.
Okay. Well, we'll just talk about it.
I'll do it, but I reserve the right to cut it out if I don't like it.
Oh, I have final edit.
Seriously?
Let's hear it.
So Pip can't talk. Like Edward doesn't understand him.
Yeah, when he comes to New York, he suddenly just
sounds
has
like a chipmunk.
Voice.
So he has to pantomime. And so he starts pantomiming. I can't do the sing-songy voice, but he starts pantomiming.
Giselle dancing. And then Nathaniel, he gets puffy.
And he's like, huh. And then...
No, that was perfect. He's like, hey.
Yeah. And he's like, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
And he's like, Nathaniel, got it, Nathaniel. And then he points to the soda and he goes, bloop, bloop, bloop. And it like pulls up ice cubes and he picks up an apple. And then he goes...
He picks up an ice cube.
He picks up an ice cube and he goes, apple?
He's switching back and forth between Nathaniel and Giselle. He goes, apple? No, thank you.
Is good. And Ryan and I would like for the longest time just say that to each other.
By this point, we've gone through most of the bottle of wine.
But afterwards, like in years of us, it's still a joke that we say. It's still something that we...
If we ever have an apple, it's like, apple?
Apple? No, thank you.
Is good.
It will not be as funny probably for anyone else, but I absolutely adore that scene, and it can make me laugh at a moment's notice.
First of all, we got close to the scene, and you started like clapping, like "Hooray! The scene's coming!" when Pip is like running across the deli, you're like, oh, "They're in the deli."
Yes, I love it. It's great. So we cut back to the office. This is where we see her looking in the fish tank, and Jodie Benson, the secretary, is like trying to figure out like how to get her home. And she talks to these clients, the two who were fighting the night before, and asks them.
She's like, "Oh, the man, you look so beautiful.
I love your hair. You look so beautiful." And she's like, don't her eyes just sparkle?
And she's like, the man who holds your heart is a very lucky man indeed. And she's like, I wish he knew that. She's like, is it him? Oh, and then like Robert has to explain divorce to her. And she's just like...
and then she just gets so sad. She's like, so they'll be separated forever and ever. And then the other lawyer thinks it's a stunt to just work them up. And then they storm out. And now it's clear that she's kind of made a mess of Robert's work environment as well as his personal life.
So there's something I want to talk about here. There's a great Conan interview with Amy Adams where she talks about how she can cry on command. but she just needs something to talk about. And so they start talking about there was a sriracha factory they had to close down because it was causing too much like spice in the air.
Oh, I get that from when that time you made hot sauce and I like almost died in our apartment.
But she's talking about like, and all those people will be out of a job, and she's like,
she can just do it.
And I'll have to put it up because they're trying to think of something to talk about. So she's like, I can't just like I have to be talking.
Yeah,
and it feels exactly like she's like. What do you mean separated for how long? Forever? Forever and ever? Like it feels like...
but it does feel natural when she starts to cry,
well, because it's not a ridiculous subject at that point.
Well, and it's also not her sobbing. It's her like getting very tearful.
I'll have to post the Conan O'Brien the clip.
But she kind of storms out and, he says, I really can't help you anymore. I can give you money, but like this is too much. I cannot get involved past this. And again, this is where she's very genuine again. She's very much like,
she goes,
you
I'm
were
sorry.
so kind to me.
She doesn't exactly understand what she's done, but she's like, I'm sorry if I
forget what she says, but it's perfect.
It's very genuine. She walks away, and then he finds her talking to a woman who's going to
feed the birds for just
$1
a bag. So it made us think of Mary Poppins, but she gives her all of the money, and she's like, "Well, you gave me money."
Well, she goes because the woman's like, "I saw Edward. He was on my bus this morning. He tried to kill me." And where we go, "Oh, she's not crazy.
She's not crazy." Edward actually did try to kill her, and he was a prince. Like, so that bit I thought was funny. But also she gives the woman all her money, and he goes, you can't just give people money. And she's like, well, you gave me money. And he's like, that's different. And I love, there's so many moments like that throughout the film that I think work really well. But now we go into
the nicest version of Central Park.
Central Park can be really beautiful.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I feel like you've only been to New York once, and you've been to Central Park briefly, and I feel like you're really critical about New York City.
Very defensive. I wasn't trying to, but it was a nice. I will say, when I went, they didn't have like all the street performers and stuff.
Yeah,
all at once,
it's also like a very huge park, so like different things could be going on.
Park.
Yeah,
I do think they were in the part we were at because not only the fountain at the end, but there was like that walk up of like all the benches on the side felt very much like where we had been, we were.
But this is where I started to focus on Patrick Dempsey's suit and how ill-fitting it was for him. It was such a boring, plain suit off the rack.
You know what it looked like? Do you remember there's that scene where she sees the small person and she goes, grumpy. And like his suit looks a little big for him.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like only on Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah,
it looked like
they
just had to get suits from Men's Warehouse really quickly.
And I'm like, he's McDreamy.
It wasn't tailored. It looked like it was just off the rack.
He's McDreamy, and he's a divorce lawyer in New York City. In Manhattan, he needs a better suit.
Hold on, Tara. This is me just talking to the audience for a second. But remember, audience, at the beginning when I said I kind of looked like James Marsden. And then throughout the movie, I found out that the whole time my wife went, ooh, Patrick Dempsey, the other lead, and had nothing to say about James Marsden. Not even once.
I'm sorry. Were you looking for that?
A little bit. And you were just like, ooh, Patrick Dempsey. Like, it was like, okay.
I'm sorry. Edward is just a little too perfect. And I think he was made to look that way.
Okay.
But yeah, so I had a real hard time as
there was like
going
a mark on his shoulder at one
like
point.
A chalk mark almost.
Yeah.
It was like, come on, guys. He needs a better suit than that.
He looks great at the end with the epaulets and the beast.
Yes, he looks great in that suit.
But this literally looked like, oh, we forgot to get him a suit.
Let's go run. Yeah, what size are you? Let's go run to like the Marshalls or whatever and grab you a suit. But this is when they run into, they're talking and they run into the vendor, and it's Nathaniel and the apple.
It's free caramel apple day.
The caramel apple is the poison face from Snow White.
Well, where she can't see it.
Where she can't see. Every time she turns it, it's facing us, the audience.
And then they're walking away, and Patrick Dempsey's explaining the reality of dating and blah, 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 blah. And he says something and she throws it, and it lands on a bike's helmet and starts steaming and going through the bike helmet.
And later at the end of the song, Edward doesn't pay attention and runs into these cyclists, and he takes off his helmet and he's got a bald spot from where the poison apple was, which is just intense. But then the song, that's how you know. This is my favorite song.
I really like it. It's a very close second.
It's
but the other
so good. And you said there were about 190 dancers and about 300 extras.
I think the 90 I may have over-exaggerated, but there were definitely over 100 dancers and 300 extras.
And you said all the cheering at the end was pretty...
It was everyone going, hooray, we finished, which isn't true. That was me making a joke.
I thought that was true.
No.
But it was 17 days of filming, and everything we saw was very bright and sunny. So if they only had 7 days of sunshine, they probably did a lot of rehearsing because it is very choreographed. There's so much going on. I would almost rewatch that scene a couple times because you catch so many things in the background.
Right. They have a bunch of layers in the background of almost every shot, which is great. Like when they're on the boat and there's other boats that had to be a very hard scene, like to get the boats where they wanted to and to kind of like float in when they wanted them to. I don't know how they did that.
And as that's happening, she, at one point, these doves come and give her these flowers shaped like a heart, and she sends them to Nancy. And he's like, they're not going to know where Nancy lives.
This is the part where Patrick Dempsey's little like asides are so funny. He's like, "Oh, he's like, how does everyone know this song?
How do you know this song?
I've never
heard this song." Yeah, he's got a lot of really good one-liners.
And you kind of catch him dancing a little
at the end by the fountain. He's like bobbing, and then he catches himself and he stops. And so he gets a call from Nancy at the end of the song, and you can hear her say, "Oh my God, thank you for the flowers. I love them. They're so beautiful."
Well, we find out Nancy has like she's a fashion
designer
person.
Of some sort. Yeah. And so they're there and she's so excited about the flowers. And then she's like, and we're getting tickets to a ball that's so unlike you. It's so romantic.
Yeah. You find out that like Nancy has wanted this thing. And I talked about this.
She wants the Prince Charm, not necessarily Prince Charming, but the whimsical romantic part of a relationship.
And I think they've both settled in ways that are like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of against their heart, their romantic nature.
Yeah. And they were like, well, this is a good fit.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Not that they don't like each other by any means. Right. But
they like each other. They don't love each other.
Yeah. And so then we cut back to Nathaniel and Edward in a motel room. And this is
the Grand Duke Hotel, which we think might be a Cinderella reference.
Maybe. Yeah, it might be. But this is when all the stuff on the TV we were talking about earlier happens, and he was referring to the TV as a magic mirror. And this is when he clips Pip. He clips him with the clips from a hanger.
Yes.
Where your pants would get clipped onto, which I hated that. But then Pip uses the hanger to his advantage to escape.
Well, this is also where Nathaniel starts, when they're watching that soap opera where she's like, you have no spine.
And it's Belle.
And it's Belle. And like he kind of like talks about, she's like, I can't respect someone who has no self, doesn't care about themselves. And like, that's when Nathaniel's turn starts coming.
Well, and he even asks Prince Edward, do you like yourself? And he goes, what's not to like?
But he doesn't seem conceited.
Again, it's earnest. It's very, he's really great too. All of the lead characters do such a fantastic job.
This movie could have easily been poorly cast and poorly acted.
Or poorly delivered. Yeah, their lines, everybody commits 100%, and I think it really works.
Right.
So when they're in the restaurant, the Italian restaurant, they have such an honest and genuine conversation, and he doesn't talk about his wife, but this is where we find out that his wife left.
Yes.
And that, they started out romantic in love and it ended poorly.
But I do also like wait, this is dinner. We're talking about ourselves. This is a date. He's like,
No, we're friends. But that's how he described a date to her earlier on.
And he's like, in most dates, you don't bring your kid. And his kid is just over in the corner helping one of the owners fold.
Yes.
Do you think it's because they go there a lot?
Yes, because when Edward comes, when he hears on the TV where the restaurant was located, he goes across the street and that's where he lives. So I think this is
they know each other.
Probably a couple nights a week. He probably goes there with Morgan.
But they also make a comment of Giselle's like, she's so kind and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then he talks, he's like, she's
she's
shy.
Very shy.
She doesn't make friends.
Doesn't have a lot of friends. I was upset that there were no peppers on that pizza. There were 3 pieces of basil. So I don't know where
there
that
were some peppers in the salad, but like,
that's a big stretch for a hidden Mickey. But anyway, this is where Nathaniel comes in as an Italian waiter, and he's like, from your secret admirer. And this is when Patrick Dempsey's like, why are people just giving you stuff? Like all day she's been getting stuff for free.
I also love when he goes, she's like, well, I'll just have one sip. And then Nathaniel goes, one sip is all it takes. And I'm like, If a waiter said that to me or you, if he's like, someone sent you this drink and was like, one sip is all it takes, I'd be like, no. I'd have my hand over that glass.
Well, and Patrick
so fast.
Dempsey, he makes the joke that like, oh, they're poison. Like, as in like, if you have one too many, they creep up on you, which appletini do creep up on you. I don't know if you've ever had an appletini. I've never had a red one. I've had green ones.
I'm sure I've sipped one. I don't think I've ever ordered one for myself.
Yeah. But Pip comes to the rescue, and then again, they think it's vermin. And so it like causes this whole big scene. And then when he throws the pizza that Pip is underneath in the fire, Giselle thinks Pip has died. And so she's devastated, and everyone's cheering because they think he saved them all from this like crazy vermin.
I think that gives Nathaniel some confidence that he could be the hero.
Yeah, I think it does, because he stays at the restaurant. He's at the restaurant. People probably bought him drinks.
Nathaniel's journey is one of my favorite parts of this movie that I think is easily overlooked.
Yeah, so as they go back to the apartment, Ryan noticed a Cinderella book in the background of Morgan's room, and she's telling her story and talks about witnessing the wolf around his grandmother's house. And Morgan's like, that's not a version I've heard. She's like, Red tells it a little differently, which I liked that little bit.
I also like that because it's not like really a Disney character, but yeah, I like that.
And so then her and Patrick Dempsey, they get into a fight, and then she realizes she's angry, and then she laughs because it's the first time she's ever been angry. And so she seems like she's really starting to enjoy all these different feelings and experiences that she's not been able to experience in the fantasy land.
Well, they 100% almost kiss here.
Yes.
Not like, I thought it was interesting that he's the one who's like, and he walks away.
He's like, okay. And then like, he walks away into his bedroom, and then it's clear that they both realize they have feelings for each other in this moment. And then when Edward finds her the next day, he goes to all the different apartments. And when he finds her the next day and he comes into the apartment, he's swinging her all around. And then he's singing, and she doesn't finish it.
Yes.
And
well,
so
she says it in a way. He goes, "You're not singing." And she goes, "I guess I'm not." And she's just kind of like, I like her
And then she wants to go on a date. I like that she's very much like, oh, I need to know if we're going to be compatible and get along.
Edward on the date with the like...
With all of the touristy...
I love...
The Statue of Liberty foam hat. Yeah. But when she says goodbye to Robert and Morgan, it's so touching and so sad when she says goodbye to them here before they go on their date. It's like, again, another really honest and genuine conversation. And then he says, before he leaves, Edward says, "Thank you for taking care of my bride, peasants." Leaves. So, and then when she appears in the martini, Narcissa, she is talking to Nathaniel, who's still at the restaurant. So it's clear he's spent the night there. Like, people have probably bought him drinks or whatever, and he's still there. And when she leaves, all the glass explodes, and Pip comes into the scene and he poops, which was such a weird
I'd already
moment.
Forgotten. Yeah, what happens, he goes,
we had to go back because it happened so quick.
Because he was trapped in like the tip jar.
Yeah, and I guess he gets blown out of it when the glass explodes.
And he looks at Nathaniel, it's like, and like a little turd comes out. And we were like, wait,
it's like,
what?
That didn't need to be there.
We got a new larger television. I think that's the only reason.
You think that's the reason we saw it?
Such a look. It's already paying. It's already making it paying back.
Yeah.
You know.
So we could bring that to you live here first, listeners. But then we go back to the divorce. We go back to the office of the attorneys, and the couple is not fighting. They're holding hands. They're like, no, we don't want to go through with this. Like, we're in love. Like, she reminded us of all the good times, and why should we, forget about all of those and not focus on all of those? And you made a good point that it would have been nice if they said something to the effect of, we know we have a lot of work ahead of us. Yeah. Instead of just being like, oh no, we're in love again.
Because I think this movie teeters dangerously close on being like, divorce is not the right answer. And it's like, sometimes divorce needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think people I think the idea of this movie is like, you should let more romance, like romantic in like the big term, not just love romance, but like these kind of fantastical,
and the whimsical, the whimsical parts of life.
But
let it into your life more often.
I'm interested to see if the other part of the movie, like, I hope they don't get divorced in the other one. Like, I like them together, but maybe that's the story as they start.
Yeah, it'll be
but
interesting for the sequel.
I think they need to also be like, sometimes people aren't meant to be together. Like, Patrick Dempsey and his first wife weren't meant to be together, and that's what happens, and that's unfortunate. But I wish they would have done that a little bit more here, but still pretty good considering.
Yeah. So then they finish their touristy date, and that's the other bit. This is another good line when she's like, "Did you like your hot dog?" And then he looks so
like
concerned because like he ate a dog, and she's like, "Oh no, that's what they call it here. It's not a real dog." But then he's like, "So we can go back home," and she's like, "Well, can we do one more thing first?" And she talks about the ball, and he says, "Fine, we'll do the ball." And then she goes to Morgan, and she says, "I need your help."
And she gets the credit
She goes,
card.
Dad says this is only for emergencies, and this is an emergency. And it's like a gold Amex card. And then they go shopping. And they use Robert's credit card as they go shopping. And this is where they have that conversation, is this what it's like shopping with your mother? And we don't know anything about Giselle's mother, but she says, "I don't know. I've never been shopping with my mother."
It could also be a line that's like they've never been shopping because she's from a
That's
fantasy
a good point.
world.
Yeah.
And there's not shopping in
and she references
Analasia or whatever.
Yeah, and she references stepmothers, and she goes, "Well, don't believe what you hear. I know a lot of very nice stepmothers, and I hear Edward's stepmother's lovely, although I've never met her." And then it cuts to her fantastic entrance, and we've not said who the voice is.
Susan Sarandon. Well, because it's not just the voice;
it's not the voice.
It's a live performance.
Yeah,
and her makeup in this is
everything.
So
She's
good.
so good as this character. And then this is when we see Nathaniel in the cab, and he's calling the radio,
which is a funny bit. That's because it's like
he just didn't need to be dressed up.
Yeah,
I don't like that he was dressed up. But he calls in to a radio show. He essentially calls Frasier. And he
thank you for plugging.
You're welcome, Craniacs. Also everywhere you get your podcasts. But he calls in for advice, and so he's talking about his relationship with Narcissa as she like appears and she finds him.
Because the woman's like, she's like, you need to have a talk with her and really get to understand how she feels about you. And then Narcissa enters the scene and goes, "Hello, worthless Miss B."
Something like that.
I think she's the evil queen and Maleficent. And you had somebody else. You said Lady Tremaine.
I said a little bit of Lady Tremaine, but you said a touch of Yzma.
I think she's got some Yzma fashion sense,
and Yzma energy a little bit. Yeah, it's really good. But so there's this whole shopping montage, and you made a good point. When they go to this ball, it's like a period style ball. So everybody is in clothing from what era would you say?
I don't know. I think it's all over the place. I don't think it's necessarily.
It's not one specific,
but it's there's people. It looks like French Revolution type stuff.
And so she is in a very modern dress, and I was like, well, that's interesting. But you made the point of that's her fantasy. She's never been in something like that.
That's her dressing up. That's being
her
in costume.
Exactly. Yeah,
which
and
would have been my thesis paper in some English if I had to do an English thing on this.
Yeah,
I said it was
it's a beautiful dress, and it reminds me if anyone's seen My Best Friend's Wedding. Julia Roberts' character, her dress, it's not the same dress, but the color is similar. I really like the color.
The face I just gave you was to say, I believe the Venn diagram of people who listen to our podcast and have seen My Best Friend's Wedding is a pretty big overlap. Like, I would be shocked.
Have you seen it though?
Yeah, I think everyone saw it.
I saw it in the theater.
I don't remember much about it. I remember them singing in the
with the lobster
hands.
Claws. Yes, in the restaurant. But they are all dancing. He's surprised she's there. Nancy's surprised she's there. And then the conductor gives very specific instructions that you are to dance with someone you didn't show up with.
Which is it's like, please be with someone you didn't come with for the king and queens. Like, if they just would have said, like, the next song is for someone you didn't show up with. But then it's like,
well, they didn't even need to do that. They could have just, like, done a dance that was like you switch partners.
Yeah, or
and
something.
They didn't need
I don't
that.
know.
They didn't need that in there. But anyway.
Because it was like the king and queen's dance, and then it was the most tender, like, I love the person I'm currently dancing with. But I will say this is when we notice Patrick Dempsey is singing to her.
Yes, and he whispers in her ear, too. So he's, I think, singing to her in her ear as well, which is a very sweet moment.
Well, that was the big thing. He said, because she comes in, she goes... Yeah, he goes, I don't dance earlier. She goes, I thought you said you couldn't dance. He says, I said, I don't dance. I didn't say I couldn't.
Couldn't dance. And he says he's similarly when they're singing in the park.
Although that like dance they do where they're doing like, it starts off as a national thing and they start like doing like weird moves.
Shimmy and
like, what is
Patrick Dempsey, or they didn't, but everyone around them did.
Let's talk about Idina Menzel's hair real quick.
I did not care for it.
I loved it.
I did not care for it. I just don't think it looked good on her.
I thought it looked. I mean, I don't think it. I don't. If she wore it with like another dress to like some other event, it would look ridiculous. But I think it was perfect for what they were doing.
Yeah, I guess. Then we see Susan Sarandon. She shows up as an old woman, and she's horrifying. Those teeth. She has so 3 good. Teeth. She hams it up. It's fantastic. She does this
like tongue thing through the teeth,
through the gums.
Apparently, when they were shooting, like they got her ready and they did a couple like run throughs, just like with their script. Talking to each other, and Amy Adams was like, I can't look at you. Like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And she kept doing like the tongue thing. She's like,
well, and then she peers behind her with her eyes like wide. She knows where the camera is, and she makes the most of it.
I don't think it looks like Susan Sarandon at all.
No, I don't either.
I did not recognize her at all.
It was really, really good. Yeah. And then this is where Nathaniel stands up for himself, and he comes clean.
I did that thing where suddenly I was worried we weren't recording. Sorry.
Are we? Okay. So she talks her into biting into an apple, and then Nathaniel comes clean.
First she throws her over her shoulder and is just taking her out.
Oh, that's right.
Edward. No. Edward is the prince. Robert is.
Yes.
James Marsden opens the thing and it's like, Mother, what are you doing here? And she's like trying to convince her, oh, she fainted, don't worry. And then Nathaniel.
She swooned.
Yes. And Nathaniel, that's when he comes out and it's just like, you're lying.
Yeah. And I had a part in it and I feel really bad about that. And the apple rolls and hits. I keep referring Patrick Dempsey, so you keep going back and forth between that and Robert, but it hits Robert's foot and he looks up and that kind of clues him into what's going on. And so everyone around thinks it's part of like the ball, that it's part of the show. And they realize that True Love's kiss, have till the stroke of midnight for True Love's kiss to wake her up. And Edward kisses her first and like kisses her a couple times.
Because it doesn't work. And Tara goes, poor Amy Adams. I'm like, oh yeah, poor Amy Adams.
It was just again, she was like, oh,
look
her.
How poor Amy Adams is. She has to kiss the one that looks like my husband.
That's not what I meant. And you know it. But then Patrick Dempsey's like, no, it can't be me. And Edward's like, we have to save her. And then Nancy says, it's okay. Kiss her.
Yeah.
Like everybody has realized at this point, like you two have feelings for each other.
This is what I'm talking about. Like we talked about like there being a good villain in Disney movies. I think there's a lot of stuff to say in this where it's like, in older Disney movies, like the ex-girlfriend would have been the bad guy. The other prince would have been the bad guy. And none of them are bad guys. There's just one focused bad guy.
Yeah.
And we get a good story with that. That's kind of what I'm looking for, I think.
Moving forward when we're talking.
Not necessarily everyone, but I would like to see a good villain.
Yeah. And so she then turns into a dragon, and we both agree that she is way too chatty as a dragon.
Yes, we'll get through this part because this to me is the most boring part.
I don't have any real notes about it.
The part I really liked about this is she goes down there and then Nathaniel and Edward like in step go at her, and it's not like Nathaniel has elevated himself to a hero.
Yes,
and I think that's really like that's probably my favorite part about his journey. I don't know why, but I like that the both of them are like equals and going at her, and they both get blown back. But.
Yeah, and also Giselle leaves a shoe, so Cinderella leaves a shoe, but she goes to save Robert with the sword.
I think it's an okay scene.
She doesn't do as much saving as I would like her to do when she's up there.
Well, no one does much of anything. She like
Pip is the one who
it's just a CGI like overdone. I don't know. So
but she tries to catch him.
Yeah, she tries to catch him. Narissa falls and dies.
And turns into glitter.
I guess she could have gone back to wherever. She didn't,
Yeah. We don't know what exactly happens to her when she turns to glitter, but she tries to catch him and they're in the rain like the night they first met and they kind of like quote one another from the lines at the beginning. Yeah.
So this is kind of the epilogue where Idina Menzel is sitting there and she's like upset and then Edward comes in and is like, puts the shoe on her and they realize they're perfect for each other, so they run off and they go back to being animated
and they get married.
But she's got her cell phone, which is a dumb joke, but I do like I like that she's a modern woman in
that
wherever,
fairy tale
and
land.
I hope we get to see more of that.
Yeah, I hope we do too. I also would have loved, it wouldn't have really fit, but it was funny to think about when Giselle and Robert are back at the apartment. He goes on his computer and looks at his credit card bill, and it's a very Home Alone 2 moment where Kevin's dad is like, Giselle! Kevin, you spent $972 on room service or whatever it was. I just think that would have been funny. But The very end. One more note. The very end, we see that she opens a dress shop, and it looks like it's all for children. But Angela from Bones, for any Bones fans out there,
for like 2 seconds
as like an assistant or a dressmaker or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Very weird.
Nathaniel writes a book about My Royal Pain, and it's like how to defeat the evil queen in all of you.
It's really
Pip
great.
Writes a book about Silence Isn't Golden.
Yeah.
It ends with them kind of like being as a family unit, and then
kind of playing make believe in Morgan's bedroom at the end, which is really sweet.
It's great.
It's
this
really
movie's great. I love it.
It's also one that I would say, if you enjoy it, it's worth owning it on Blu-ray or DVD because there are a lot of extras, including a sing-along, I believe.
There's a sing-along, but
trivia.
There's this weird thing. It's trivia, but it's the guy who played the small person for a little bit.
Oh.
And he comes in. He's like, "All right, now here's like I don't know why.
Yeah,
it's very bizarre."
We watched it a little bit.
With what little consciousness remained.
After the night when we were drinking and playing instruments. But we watched it on Disney Plus tonight. But I will say there's a lot of good extra features. So if you're very into this movie, it is worth purchasing, I think.
Well, so let's real quick go over the episode questions. How was the princess? Wonderful. Top
she was
tier.
great.
Loved her.
Loved her.
Because she's an amalgamation of all the greatness of other princesses.
Yeah, we talked about how they wanted to focus her as a princess from ones in the past, and I think they did a good job with that.
How was the prince? He wasn't my favorite character, but he definitely had an arc, and he was such a good straight man to set up her funniness and funny on his own right.
And such a better prince than most of the princes in those movies we're referencing. Prince Philip doesn't really have a personality. Snow White's prince doesn't really.
I'm talking about Robert. I'm talking about Patrick Dempsey.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Because I will also say, we talked about this in that movie starts with the end of the end of
a fairy tale.
So it was kind of like what happens afterwards, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Robert, and I think you don't have this movie without Amy Adams, but you also don't have it without him. I think
he's possibly my least. He's above Idina Menzel, who I think is also good. I think everyone in this movie is good. He's near the
I really
lower
liked
end.
him, but I also like him as an actor. So
right, I think he's at the lower end of a stellar cast.
Yeah,
that's perfectly done, and it's still very high marks for him. I think he carries this well. I think he's charming while also being a realist. Like I think he does it pitch perfectly. And like I don't necessarily like him in everything else I've ever seen him, and I think he does some characters very well.
Yeah,
but sometimes he gets put into like kind of generic roles. But he's kind of generic here. But I also really really like him. Like I think he plays it very well. He doesn't overstay his welcome. He doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. Because I feel like everybody else I can watch and they're doing characters and they're having more fun. I think he had a harder job because he has to be a real person. Whereas Amy Adams got to overact.
Yeah, and so did Nathaniel, and so did Edward. And so did,
Susan Sarandon got to ham this up in a way that was probably so much fun. So speaking of which, let's talk about them, the sidekicks and the henchmen. I love Nathaniel. I think his story.
Nathaniel's great. I love Pip. Obviously, I talked about it. Yeah, I really like them a lot. Also, I had a fact about it being Patrick Dempsey's debut for singing. They must have talked about that. Must have been the fact about the song that got cut because he doesn't sing.
Well, he sings a little bit, but
not really.
Yeah. Favorite musical number? We've gone over that. Does it hold up? Female character agency. I think this is a really good movie for a female character that is the traditional princess without it feeling, because I feel like there's the quick hand of like, how do you make a strong female? Oh, well, she kicks butt.
Yeah.
And Giselle doesn't kick butt, but she's like, she goes on a journey. She learns about herself. She learns
she learns to stand up for herself and what she wants out of a partner in life. She realizes she's kind of found that and what's important to her. And I think she's really good with Morgan.
I love when she's reading the Important Women book, like the second night she's staying with them.
Yes.
Drinking and smoking. We talked about there's a lot of drinking in this.
And we don't really see people drinking. It's just alcohol is being served.
Well, one sip is all it takes, Tara. I just am imagining a world where someone says that to us and I'm just like slap the drink out of your hand. Like that is formaldehyde you're drinking or something. Ethnic representation. We've talked about our issues with that. There's not a lot of black people in this movie. Not a lot of people of color.
Also, period. That there are the couple, the divorced couple,
and then people in. the most diverse part is
the bus driver.
People,
it's like more the people living in New York in the background.
Guns and firearms. I mean, there's a lot of sword play, but there. So let's do. I'm very, very excited.
I know to rate. Is it Narcissa? Narissa. I think I was saying Narcissa. So I've probably said it wrong this whole podcast. I should have looked this up sooner.
It's fine.
Narissa.
All right. So let's start with frightening. I don't think she was very frightening.
I think it's the old woman.
That's an excellent point.
Is.
See, I keep forgetting that's the same character.
Yeah, and I think as the old woman in the animated, she is too. She's more in real life, in the real world, in New York. I'm going to give her a 3, I think.
Okay. I think previously I was going to give her like a 1, but now that you brought up that she's the hag, I think the hag is disturbing. I might give her a 2. I don't think that's actually I'm going to give her a 2.
Okay.
Funny. I think
Nathaniel's the humor.
I think she's funny. Like she's like, "Hey, worthless," and I like when she's like, "Just slap her, just slap." Like I will say she loses points as soon as she turns into a dragon.
Yes, she has some go away heat as a dragon for me. Actually,
interesting.
I'll give her a 2. I don't even know that I thought she was that funny. I'm gonna give her a 1. I think I overgave her frightening, and I'm undergiving her, but that's fine. It'll even out.
Fierce. I'm gonna give her a 5.
Yeah, her outfit is fantastic. Everything about her. She has this energy, this confidence. She's really great.
She is definitely up there. Effective. I mean, she
poisons her.
She throws her down a well.
She throws her down a well.
What's your plan? I'm gonna shove her in a well.
She does get rid of her, and she does poison her.
I mean, she tries to get rid of her, and she suddenly. I don't think it's a 5.
I think it's a 4, though. I think she completes the majority of her plan. It's just Edward finds out. If Edward didn't find out, right?
Yes. Design. I think she's a 4 or 5.
Yeah, her crown is really cool. Her headpiece is like really cool. Mm-hmm. Looking at her costume, like there's pieces of her headpiece that are on like the bodice, and it's got this iridescent quality. It's not purple, it's not teal, it's not blue.
Yes. I'm also going to give her a 5, I think, because not only is she so distinctive, but like she's immediately stands out. You would go, that's a Disney villain. Because she's taking the concepts from other people.
Yeah, I'm going to give her a 5 for design. I think they really did a good job. And also making her from the animated, I liked her animated version better than I liked Amy Adams' animated version.
Well, I think they tried harder to make her look like Susan Sarandon. Like, I think I saw something where they were talking about like they wanted
Well, why wouldn't they have, because it's not exactly Susan Sarandon's likeness. Well, like, why wouldn't the same thing apply?
Because I don't think there's not like a Disney. I mean, you don't see her in the Disney villain stuff. First off, but I don't think there's the Disney princesses is like once you're an official Disney princess, they sell 8 billion.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So we got both 5s for design. Go away heat. You gave her a 2.
I didn't come up with a number yet, but she has go away heat as the dragon. I think a 2 is fine.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I think over half of those lines could have been cut, and that scene in general could have been trimmed down.
And I think she's a 3 or a 4 of a yes factor for me. I don't think she's a 5 because I'm not like, Narissa, because we both went like, what's her name again?
Yeah, I'm going to give her a 3. You've seen this movie more than I have. Yeah. I get excited each time. This might only be my second or third viewing of this movie. So
I think I've only seen it 1 or 2 times more than you. So not like a ton. Yeah. I don't like watch it a lot when you're not around.
Yeah. So
why don't you give her a 3 and I'll give her a 4?
Well, I don't like gaming the system.
I don't think that's gaming. I mean,
yeah,
I guess it kind of is.
I wasn't not excited about her, but I wasn't like really super pumped for her. I was pumped for the scene that Pip and imitating Nathaniel.
That scene has a 5.
Yes, has a 5 for me.
So let me tabulate this, and I'm going to tell you right now, listeners, she's pretty high. She has a 23.5, which I feel like it's been a while since we've had a 23.
Yeah.
Okay, so with a 23.5, that makes her our number 17 villain, right between Ratigan and Hades.
Okay.
Above Ratigan, but below Hades.
I feel good about that.
I do too. I wish she was a little high. I actually wish she was just slightly higher, because if she was too high or she'd be nestled between Yzma and Madame Medusa.
Oh, that would
which would be perfect.
That would be perfect for her. But
yeah,
this is I think she's in
I think we did
spot.
a pretty good job with her. Last thing, I know the answer to this because we do own this movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's on the shelf.
Absolutely. This is on the shelf. Well, guys, this is the end of season 2. It has been a wild ride, and we are thinking about how we're going to do season 3, but I promise you we will be back.
Yeah, if you've listened to our 100th episode, we're really excited for things to come. We're excited a little bit about a break just because we have some life changes going on. So it's kind of nice to take a little pause, take a little break, take some time. But we are really pumped to talk to everyone. I guess I was about to say see, but we don't see you. To keep this going for season 3, and especially to open it with Princess and the Frog. We're really pumped for that to be the first episode.
Very excited. I mean, let's talk real quick. What are some stuff coming up? I'm excited to see Tangled finally.
Yes, we're gonna watch Tangled in the break, so we'll have like a baseline so we can watch it, enjoy it as an experience, and then do all the research we do. So yes, I'm very excited for Tangled.
I know you're excited for Moana.
I love that one. I've seen Moana, a lot. But you've only seen it once. Yeah, I've seen it a ton of times.
Why have you seen it a ton of times?
Well, I watched it. We're
now going off into something else, but did you watch it?
I watched it with Kelly's Girls, and then I've also that was one I watched after I had surgery. That was one of my feel good Disney movies to watch.
I have something I'd like to proclaim now that maybe you'll be able to do, but you're a music therapist. You understand the power of music. I would like, and watching a lot of videos for this because Idina Menzel's in it, I was shown a lot of few seconds of her singing Frozen, right? And a lot of did you know that she's the all the things. I would like to musically figure out why that song is so every time I hear it, I'm like, yes, it's so
I'm sure the chord progression. I'm sure there's something to do with the chord progression. I'm sure there's.
It gets to me.
I might, maybe I'll do some little rabbit hole side homework research.
I think that is something. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Before season 3, we're going to get you a couple episodes. You'll hear The Iron Giant. You'll hear Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and then we'll be back to hopefully finish out our Disney season,
which is wild. I'm really excited about it and really crazy that it's here.
Yep.
So,
well, we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening.
Take care, listeners. Thanks for listening to Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
If you want to tell us your favorite Disney villain and why it's guest on, send us an email at trprincessdiaries@gmail.com.
Or you can send a tweet about how great Maleficent is to @TRPDiaries.
Check out our Facebook group by searching for Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, and many more.
Wherever you hear us, please be our knight in shining armor and give us a 5-star review.
Thanks again, and until next time, remember to always live happily ever after.